Hello, and welcome to episode 52 of 10,000 Stitches Podcast, a weekly chit chat all about the joys of, well, I guess it's just knitting now, isn't it? Like, we're done with kind of our year of only socks, and so I guess just a weekly chit chat all about the joys of knitting. My name is Andy, and Happy New Year! It's 2017 now. I have a new spot where I'm recording. I'm not sure if this is going to be where I record every week. Also, it's a little bit weird for me having the microphone this close to my face, so I'm hoping that I'm not speaking too loudly for it. I'm going to try and speak quieter because it's now closer, and I also turned the gain down, so we'll see how this goes. But yeah, I have a new place where I'm recording. This is our kitchen/living room area. I colored my hair, and it's a new year. It's going to be a good year, so yeah. If you are looking for me on the interwebs, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Ravelry as Purlbug, Purlbug. You can find my blog at thepurlbug.com, and then we have the 10,000 Stitches podcast Ravelry group. If you're looking for links to anything that I mentioned today, if you're watching this in the embedded video on the blog or on Ravelry, everything will be linked right below the video. If you're watching this on YouTube, there will be a link below the video in the description box to the blog post for this episode, and you can go there and then find everything linked below. Yeah, it's been 2 weeks since I recorded last because of the holidays and everything, so as per the usual, if I seem a little bit, off my game, that's why. But yeah, it's going to be a pretty normal episode. Someone is calling me. Who's calling me? I don't know. Some random number. They can keep calling. Anyway, so it's going to be a pretty normal episode. We're going to talk about finished objects, of which I have multiple. Works in progress. A couple of projects from this past year that got frogged because they just were not going to work out. What's coming up next? We'll talk about some dyeing that I did. We'll talk about the knit along, question of the week, and then chit chat. So it might be a little bit longer episode this week just because there's a lot to cover, but whatever, we'll see. First, though, I forgot to make a note of this, so I want to make sure I talk about these before I get going on anything else. I've had my first sock casualty. So these socks are my Piece of My Heart socks, which I knitted quite a while ago during our lace knit along this past year, so I forget when that was, May and June maybe. But yeah, these were knitted with Plymouth yarns in the Neon Now colorway, and so it was this really pretty heart lace pattern. I actually hadn't been wearing these very much. I only maybe wore them like 2 or 3 times because this yarn bleeds like crazy. I did the toes and cuffs in this really pretty cream color. It's Cascade Heritage in this cream color. And so here you can see the difference between, this is the same yarn but hasn't been washed with this other pink yarn. And it just turned super pink. This yarn bleeds all over the place to the point where I left them sitting in my laundry basket forever because I couldn't wash them with anything. They were turning all of our clothes pink. So I don't know what happened, but I got a hole in one of them. You can see it here. Oop, right there. So I don't know what the deal was. I don't know if maybe it was just a weak stitch or something, or it got caught on something. The last time I washed these, I found this after the last time I washed them because I washed them by hand. So who knows, maybe it got snagged on something, maybe a bug got into it. I don't know. We do get silverfish around here sometimes. And I think they eat wool. So who knows, but I was keeping it just so I could show you guys. Boom, got a hole in one of my socks. But I don't think I'm going to try and save these just because, like I said, this yarn is so much trouble. Like, I love how bright and fun they are, but like, I can't wash them with everything else. And, I've talked about it before, but I just am not crazy about hand washing socks. And especially because, they bleed so much pink dye that it's like, it's not even like I can hand wash other things with them. It's like I have to just wash this pair of socks all by themselves. So I'm just not sure that I want to do that. So I was hanging on to them, but I'm pretty sure that in this case, my way of darning them is going to be holding them over the garbage can and saying, "Oh, darn." So, yeah, that's that. Now let's talk about some successes. Let's talk about some finished objects. So my first finished object, and these are not really going to be chronological so much, but my first finished object is my shawl that I was working on. I finished this up just before we left for Christmas, and I was really excited because I finished it up and I managed to get it soaked washed and dried so that I could wear it on our trip, which was really nice because it kept me nice and warm on the plane. But this is what it looks like. So you can actually really kind of see the gradient effect really well now that it's done. And yeah, so it's just a big triangle shawl. I think the pattern that I've been linking to has been the dovetail wrap by Pearl Soho, so I'll link that again. But I really wasn't following a pattern. It's just a basic triangle garter shawl. And I basically just knit until I was more or less out of yarn. So yeah, it's pretty big. It's pretty warm. It's not super soft. This was knit with Lion Brand Fisherman's wool, so like it's not a very soft wool. It was dyed by me using Kool-Aid forever ago. And I knit this on US size 8s. So yeah, that's done, and I'm pretty proud of it. And it's a nice, warm sort of scarf. I'll probably wind up taking it into my office and leaving it in my office because it'll be really good for those days when, I haven't dressed quite warm enough, but I just need like a little something around my neck to keep me warm. So yeah, so that's all done, and wore it home, brought it home for our vacation, and it served me well at home. So boom, finished object number 1. Onto the couch. Finished object number 2. So these were also finished right before we left to go home, and these are my Advent socks. So I've talked a lot about my Advent socks, about how I kind of did a DIY Advent calendar, so I won't bore you too much with that. But yeah, these are the finished product. These I did using the zigzagular pattern, so because I really like it. It's a really fun pattern, and it's a 20-row chart, so I just did each repeat of the chart got its own color. They have afterthought heels, and yeah, not much to them. I knit one each day. I had hit a point in the middle of the month where I wasn't quite sure if I was going to make it, and I did, because I'd fallen behind by a couple of days, and so I did catch back up and wore these on our plane ride home. And I actually ran out of yarn. This was the second one, and this was the last cuff that I did, and I ran out of yarn. So you'll see that this cuff is definitely not as long as the other cuff. I think I had to cut it short by a couple of rows, and it got to the point where I was like, oh shoot, I really need to bind off now. And I ended with like maybe about that much yarn left. So played yarn chicken and won, but it was close. So yeah, like I said, I wore these home, and we have the TSA pre-check, which means that we don't have to take our shoes off at the airport anymore. Seriously, it wasn't such a big deal flying through Richmond, but flying through Minneapolis, which is always a super slow airport, best $85 we've ever spent. Do it. But yeah, so we don't have to take our shoes off. So I was actually a little bit sad that I didn't have to take my shoes off and, didn't get a chance to show off my fun socks. Not like the TSA people care, but yeah, so those were done, brought them home with me, wore them, boom. They've now been washed. They actually just got washed this morning, so I could show you guys because I hadn't done laundry from our trip yet. So those are finished object number 2. Whoop. Finished object number 3, which again got finished right before we left. Like I killed my hands the day before we left finishing these, and also fresh from the washer, are my Christmas socks. So these are yarn that I dyed myself. I kind of wound up doing this like striping thing. Basically I took a skein and I kind of, folded it in half. So it was like a nice big long thing. And I took the 2 opposite ends and dunked them in like red. And then I folded it the other way and took the 2 opposite ends and dunked it in green. So it formed these kind of skinny little stripes. The stitch pattern on the front of these is the Hermione's Everyday Socks. Just for a little bit of fun. It was a really nice pattern to do, really brainless, and really made it easy to count how many rows I'd done. And yeah, these were knit on US size 0s. The yarn base, like I said, I dyed it myself. It was a 75-25 superwash BFL nylon blend. Those other socks, the Advent socks, which are on the couch, which is what I'm pointing to right now, those were knit on US size 1s, which is a 2.25 millimeter needle. I don't remember what I just said. US 0s, 2 millimeter needle. I'm just after lunch, guys, so I'm into the afternoon sleepy time, so we'll see if I can make it. But anyway, these were really nice. Like I said, I finished them right before we left, and then I wore them on Christmas Day. So yeah, that was finished object number 3, I guess. Finished object number 4, I actually don't have with me because I left them back home, but I will try and put in a picture here. Future me, do this. I have a note in my show notes to do it. So anyway, finished object number 4 was my little cable knee highs, which if you remember, if you've been watching for a long time, I started those forever ago. And they're the first knee-high pair of socks I've ever done, and that was just really daunting. And I definitely think I was a slower knitter then than I am now. But I did get them finished. I finished them up on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. I forget which one, but yep, I got them finished while we were at home. They were knit on US size 1.5, which is a 2.5 millimeter needle, using Patton's Croy in the flax for the main color, and then cameo colors for the cuffs, heels, and toes. The pattern for those is the Little Cable Knee Highs by Pearl Soho. I'll link that. I did them top down rather than toe up, but yeah, I got it done, gave them to my mom, so I don't have them here. So yeah, that was, and then my last one is, oh, my computer screen has turned off. Computer screen, what are you doing? Oop, there we go. I just reformatted my computer the other day, so like there's some settings that haven't been readjusted. But anyway, my last finished object is my traveling cables hat, which actually was kind of sort of finished the last time I showed it to you guys, but now it has a pom-pom on it and it's ready to go out to its intended recipient. So yeah, just wanted to show you guys that one more time. The pom-pom is just the little bit of leftover Madeline Tosh that I had, and then some white bulky acrylic yarn that I was using to make our Christmas stockings. So yeah, just a nice big fluffy pom-pom, and that will be headed out in the mail very soon. So, and this is the Traveling Cables hat by Pearl Soho. So, and the rest was made with, yeah, Madeline Tosh Merino Light, and this was knit on US size 5 and 6s. So I've talked about this before, so I won't bore you guys with this one, but such a fluffy pom-pom. Yeah. So I had originally been talking about doing like one of those faux fur pom-poms on this thing, but I decided to go with yarn because I just didn't want the person who's getting it to have to like worry about like, oh, is it, you know, do I have to take the pom-pom off? Like now the whole thing can just be washed, although it really needs to be washed by hand, but still, like now the whole thing can just go in the wash altogether. So yeah, that's my last finished object. Whoop. In terms of works in progress, so I had been talking that I really wanted to clear off all of my projects from 2016 and not have anything like left lingering, which is why I was working on those little cable knee highs and stuff like that. I had wanted to finish up Scrapopotamus, and that just didn't quite happen. So maybe I'll have it to show you guys next week or the week after. I had forgotten like how much using that tiny little crochet hook really hurts my hands. And so I had started on the pentagons. Like I just have the pentagons and the nose pieces left for him. But I got a couple in and I was just like, this is murder on my hands. And I really just don't want to do it right now. So I think I just need to take it a little bit at a time, and you know, hopefully I'll have him done within a couple weeks. But if you're new, Scrapopotamus is a scrap yarn, you know, mini skein sort of project that I'm doing using the Happypotamus pattern by Heidi Bears, which I'll link. And I'm basically just making one little patch out of each mini skein or scrap yarn or whatever that I have. So he's going to be a adorable little hodgepodge of colors. So yeah, that's that. And then my other work in progress is something that I started over Christmas. And these are a pair of blueberry waffle socks. And I have, oh, my nose is so itchy. I have one of them done, so I can show you the finished one. And this is the finished one. So this is, the pattern is blueberry waffle socks. And it is knit using now my nose is all runny. Just cannot catch a break today. It is knit using yarn from the Lancaster Yarn Shop. Lancaster Yarn Shop. And it's a 75-25 superwash nylon blend, and the colorway is Backyard Peacock. And it's this really pretty sort of tonal kettle-dyed teal color, which I think is really lending itself well to the blueberry waffle pattern. It's sort of like a Regia or like an opal sort of yarn where like it's not super soft, but it's not quite as rough as like Patton's Croy. So it's a nice, you know, hardy sort of yarn. And because this was a very generously sized skein, so it was 112 grams, which is 484 yards, I did a pretty long leg on it. So I did 20 rows of ribbing in the Cascade Heritage kind of cream color that I showed you guys, and then I did 80 rows of leg, heel flap and gusset, and then the normal size foot to fit me. So this one has a leg that is just about as long as the foot, which is fine, like as sort of like a boot sock or something like that, it'll be really good. So this one is finished, and then the other one is, I'm more than halfway through the leg, but I forget exactly how far I am. So that's the other one. This is being knit on US size 1s, which are a 2.25 millimeter needle, except that I did knit the cuffs on my US 1.5s because my experience with other socks that are this tall, mostly my ones that I knit from the PhD yarns in the Quantum Dots colorway, is that if I'm not careful, the cuffs can get a little bit tight as they get that far up my legs. So I figured I'd make the cuff just a little bit bigger, a little bit stretchier by going up a needle size, and hopefully that will help. So yeah, these are really fun for me to knit. It's not a super tough pattern or anything, so it's been very nice to just sort of sit and knit on them when I have the time. So yeah, that's that. Let's talk about a couple things that got frogged, and then I'll probably have to pause and save and come back. Again, if you've been with me for a while, I had a couple pairs of socks that just didn't quite come out the way they were supposed to. The first pair is the socks that I knit using the Knit Picks Fleechy in the, I think, Madrigal colorway, which is this yarn. And these were just a pair of vanilla socks that I knit while we were on vacation in California, way back at the beginning of the summer. And I don't know what happened with these, but somehow I wound up making one sock like an inch shorter than the other. And so I figured, you know what, like this isn't any good. And I'm pretty sure that the shorter sock was not even like big enough to fit my mom. So it wasn't even like I could rip back the other sock to, So I figured, whatever, I'll just frog them. I'll turn them into another pair of socks. So I did that with these. I gave them a soak, which is why they kind of look like this. They just need to be wound up into a ball now. But yeah, I frogged those ones, and those will probably just become another pair of vanilla socks probably. But, yeah. So that one's been frogged. And then the other pair is, I don't remember if this was my first successful pair of 2 at a time socks, but these were the ones. So the pattern that I used for these was my business casual, which I was trying to make to fit Wesley. And I forget, this is, Wildfoot yarns, I think, and I think it's like the Tomcat colorway or something. It's like black and gray and purple, sort of like barber pulling yarn. But yeah, so these, I was doing business casual with these, and the stitch count just was not big enough, and so like he couldn't even get them on his feet, and so they were just too small, and they were really too small to fit anyone because they just didn't have any stretch to them. So I figured, you know what, let's frog these. I don't exactly know what I'll do with this. I might try and make another pair of socks for Wesley, but yeah, like why leave it sitting in a pair of socks that aren't even wearable? So yeah, that one's been frogged as well. So I now have, mostly cleared off all of my works in progress from 2016 and dealt with some projects that just didn't quite turn out the way that I wanted them to. So good end to 2016 knitting wise, in terms of just kind of like clearing up some stuff that was clogging up, my projects and all of that. So yeah, and with that, I will pause, save, and be right back. Cool. Okay, so let's talk about what's coming up next, and then we'll talk about some yarn that I've dyed. So in terms of what's coming up next, speaking of business casual, I'm going to try them again because, this first sort of knit along that we're doing this year is cables, and that's a cabled pattern. So I'm going to try them again, hopefully, taking some of the knowledge from the last time and I'll probably adjust my needle size and not try and do a fish lips kiss heel on them and a lot of stuff. But anyway, so I'm going to try and make those out of some yarn that I dyed myself. This is the very first skein of yarn that I ever dyed. This is sort of the purple one, which doesn't want to show up purple on camera. I don't know why this camera has such a hard time with purples, but yeah, this was the yarn that I had been using for my fireweed socks, which got frogged. This is the stuff from the fireweeds. So yeah, this is that yarn, and I think I'm going to try and make these for my older brother because I finally got him to measure his foot, so I finally know how big his foot is, and so yeah, I think I'll make these for him. And then the other pair of socks that I need to get started relatively soon are going to be my dad's birthday socks. I forget if my dad watches these or not. If he does, hi Dad. This shouldn't be a surprise that you're getting socks for your birthday again. If you remember, I made him socks last year for his birthday. He can't wear wool, and so last year I made him a pair of socks out of Plymouth Yarns Diversity. I'm going to do the same again this year. This year I'm using, the colorway is 0009, and this is actually one of their variegated ones. It's not a self-striping one, so I'm interested to kind of see how it works up. And, You guys know that I'm not always happy with the diversity because it sometimes has like knots and stuff in it. But at least with this one, if it has knots, it's not going to like screw up a striping pattern. So yeah, I'm kind of excited to knit this up. It'll probably just be another pair like I made him last year, shorter leg, and maybe not vanilla, but you know, close to vanilla. So if you're new here, this Plymouth Yarns Diversity is sort of my go-to non-wool sock yarn, just because it's the only one I really have tried and have easy access to. But it's a 93% acrylic, 7% elastic yarn. And it's not so bad, except that I just feel like their quality control is a little bit not great. And they don't have a lot of colorways. Like, it's mostly self-striping. And so, yeah, I think they maybe have like 1 or 2 variegated ones and no solids. It's like, come on, Plymouth Yarns, do a solid one. Anyway, so those are the 2 that I'm looking to get started next. And then, and like I said, you know, this year I'm sort of taking my knitting more slowly. So like these plus finishing up my waffle socks, which are now sitting on the floor. I moved everything. So those plus finishing up my waffle socks will probably take me through January, which is fine. I mean, you know, a little bit less output is fine. I am, you know, like I said, I'm working to more enjoy the process of knitting versus just the product at the end. So we'll see. We'll see how long that patience holds out. But yeah, let's talk about some yarn that I dyed. So first of all, I will hopefully have a lot of yarn that I dyed to show you guys maybe next week or the week after. I dyed up, I think, 5 skeins when I was at home. So let's go to the beginning of the story. So my mom bought me a bunch of bare yarn for me to dye up. And the plan was that I was going to dye up, you know, a skein in the color she wanted and the color my little brother wanted, and like do this for a bunch of people. And it was kind of supposed to be this like fun activity, and then plans changed. So, but I did still dye up a bunch of it. I dyed up 5 skeins, but this was like the last day we were in Minnesota. So I obviously couldn't wait for them to dry and take them with me. So I left them at her place, and she's going to mail them back to me as soon as they're dry. This was, you know, almost a week ago now, so I'm sure they're dry, but now it's just a matter of like, you know, she has a life and has other things to do than run to the post office. So whenever she gets to the post office and gets them mailed, I will show you guys once I get them. But I do have a couple skeins that I have it's 2 skeins that were dyed at the same time to show you that I did a couple days before, so they were dry for me to bring home, and then 1 skein that I dyed once we got back. Because she bought me this pack of 10 skeins of merino nylon, 80/20 merino nylon, 80/20 superwash merino nylon sock yarn. And this is the Cloudborne fibers, and I don't have one of the labels with me, but I will link to it. She bought it off Craftsy. I don't know if you can only get it off Craftsy, but that's where she got it from. So yeah, the first one is this, which if I were to give my colorways names, which I don't tend to do, I would call this Wilted Rose, because it kind of looks like a bouquet of roses when you've had them for, you know, like about a week, and they start to get a little brown around the edges. And again, it's not wanting to pick up this color very well on camera, but it's sort of a mauve with little bits of brown. There you can really see the brown. I was going for the whole thing to be brown, because that's of course what all the men that I know want. They want black or they want brown. And so I was going for an overall brown, and it was starting to look very green. And so I added more red and then came out with this. So it's a very pretty color. I really like it, but it's definitely not the brown that I was going for. But yeah, so I have 2 skeins of this, and then I dyed up this skein once we got back, because so when I was dyeing up skeins at my mom's place, I was dyeing up 1 skein to make socks for the daughter of my little brother's girlfriend. And the girl is like 4. I think she just turned 4. And so, you know, I was like, well, what color socks do you want? She's like, all the colors. So, okay. So I dyed up a skein just like this for her. And then I got back and I was like, I want a skein like that. And it's kind of my attempt at doing like a speckly sort of yarn. And so basically it's, like I put it in the pot, and then as soon as the water was hot enough, I sprinkled like Kool-Aid on top of it, and then I just let it sit, and didn't, you know, agitate it or anything. So I wound up with all of these little sort of sprinkles of color that I think will look very sort of nice, knit up. And so this is, I would probably call this like a funfetti sort of thing. And I did make sure to like flip it over midway, like when I put it in the pot, I sort of flipped half of it over so that it wouldn't all be on one side. So there are some on the inside as well. So yeah, I thought it was just super fun and super pretty, and I'm super excited to make the socks for the little girl, because, you know, I can just do kind of whatever I want, and she's 4 and she loves everything. So yeah, that's the other skein that I dyed up, and then like I said, I should have a lot more to show you guys in a week or two. But yeah, that's it for the dyeing. So let's talk about the knit along. So we'll first talk about the end of the last one, we'll talk about the start of the next one, and then we'll talk about some other knit alongs that are kind of on my radar, because I want to try and do that a little bit more and, like, you know, participate in other people's knit alongs. So yeah, the winner of the last knit along for 2016, the sock yarn isn't just for socks, it was Mystery Sewer, and I will, future me, if you remember, put in a picture of the winning socks here. But yeah, so that one's done. So as a reminder, that the prize yarn for that one is this guy. This is the one that I dyed up that has like the little white specks in it, and this is sort of the, my God, it's full of stars. So yeah, that's that. And then by the time you guys see this, I should have the new threads put up for the first knit along of 2017. And if I think about it, I will try and come up with a hashtag to use on Instagram. I want to get more into doing that, and I will try and put it down. I'm trying to figure out where I am on my camera. Down here somewhere? Gosh, my camera's at such a weird angle now. Down along the bottom of the screen. It'll be here somewhere, right? Hopefully. But yeah, the new threads will be up. I figured I'd recap the rules really quick, but of course those will be in the thread as well, if you'd rather just go read them. But the rules are basically that right, each knit along is going to have a color and a technique theme. So for this first one, the technique is cables, the color is blue. And if you're part of the Ravelry group, this is all sort of in that like intro section in the group, like that top sort of section, for the whole year. So January and February are cables and blue. And so basically your finished object has to fit under one of those two themes. So it either has to have fairly extensive cabling, right? Like the cable has to be an important element of the project. So it doesn't have to be something like the traveling cables have, but it has to be something like at least like a zigzagular, right? Where the cables run the entire project. Or it has to fit under the color theme. So like for that, it would have to be unambiguously blue, right? No blue-green, no teal, no, you know, whatever, no indigo. It has to be blue. So yeah. It has to fit under the technique or color theme. It has to be a one skein project, right? So that's kind of our theme for this year. We're no longer doing just socks, but it has to be a one skein project. And I kind of talked about this a little bit last time. I don't necessarily define one skein as like, oh, the yarn can only come from one skein, but basically I'm defining it in terms of the size of the project, right? So for this, I'm saying a one skein project has to be between 50 grams and 150 grams worth of yarn. So because I know some people will buy 150 gram skeins for shawls. Hang on, my computer's gone black again. There we go. I know some people will buy 150 gram skeins of yarn for shawls, and that's fine. But basically between 50 and 150 grams is what defines a one skein project. So small portable projects is the theme for this year. Other than that, it doesn't matter what weight of yarn you use. It doesn't matter what project category it's in. It has to be, you know, it can't be a whip, right? It has to be started and finished within the time of the knit along. And you have to submit, you know, in the FO thread with a picture. But other than that, it's kind of a free-for-all, right? If you want to make mittens, if you want to make hats, if you want to make a shawl, socks, right? I'm still going to be making a lot of socks this year. You know, it could be a baby sweater. It could be a baby hat, sweater, booty combo, whatever, right? It just has to fit the color or technique theme, and it has to be a one skein project. So I'm excited to see kind of what people submit, because I feel like that opens it up to a lot more ideas. And I'm excited to do some things other than socks, although I will mostly be doing socks. So yeah, like I said, our first one will run from the 1st of January, which was yesterday for me. It'll be 2 days ago for you guys, until the end of February. So February 28th. And I don't have a prize for it yet because it just started, but yeah, there'll be a prize of some sort. And yeah, like I said, the threads should be up by the time you guys see this. I plan to do it as soon as I get done recording. And yeah, I'm excited to see what you guys do. I was really excited. The sock yarn isn't just for socks, Cal. I thought was really, really fun because I got to see a lot of different kinds of projects, and there was a lot of participation in it. I think we had like 70 finished objects or something. So that was really fun. So I'm really hoping that we can kind of continue that with this year, with opening it up to things other than just socks. So awesome. In terms of other knit-alongs that I'm sort of taking part in or interested in, and it's only two, right? Because there's always knit-alongs going on, but these are the two that I'm really interested in. One is the Make Whips Not Waste with, and this is, I forget her Ravelry name. I want to say it's like Hey Brownberry, or maybe it's just Brownberry. But anyway, the podcast is Brownberry Chronicles. And I haven't been able to watch any of her episodes yet because I found out about her podcast before we left, and then I just haven't had a whole lot of time. But anyway, the Make Whips Not Waste, it's actually a make-along, not just a knit-along, but it's basically geared towards using what you already have, right? And I know a lot of us have been saying, you know, oh, one of our goals for 2017 is to knit from stash. Well, this is your chance to really do it. So like, the whole thing is, right, you knit with yarn that you had prior to January 1st. You knit with patterns that you had prior to January 1st. Right, so it's basically just using up stuff you already have. And it's not like super strict, I don't think. Of course, I'll link to the group so you guys can go take a look at it. But it's basically just an incentive for you to use things you already have and clear out some of that stash of, you know, yarn, or I think it's maybe sewing as well. I forget, but yeah, so that's definitely one that I will be trying to participate in and, you know, be in the thread over there and be interested in that because, you know, I definitely have way more yarn right now than I have space for, and I need to get some of it turned into projects and turned into finished objects and out the door because, you know, I just don't have room for all this stuff in my apartment. So I need to get some of this made into stuff and then gift it away. So that's one of them. The other one is the Harry Potter knit-along from Inside number 23. And of course, I'm sure a lot of people know about this podcast. I knew about it, but I hadn't really watched any of Katie's stuff until just recently because she was doing Vlogmas, and I love Vlogmas. So like I binged watched a bunch of her Vlogmas, and then I went back maybe like 2 months or so and I went back and watched her Vlogtober, and then I went back and watched some of her episodes kind of between Vlogtober and Vlogmas. And so she's really big on Harry Potter, and so she's doing a Harry Potter knit-along for all of 2017. And, you know, basically it can be a Harry Potter themed yarn or Harry Potter themed project, pattern, stuff like that. So I might be doing some of those. We'll see. But, if you're a Harry Potter fan, definitely something to look into. So yeah. So let's wrap up the knitting stuff with question of the week, which isn't actually about knitting, but you know, and then we'll go on to chatter stuff. But the question of the week this week is just, how did you ring in 2017? You know, Wesley and I, we sat at home and we ate Thai food, and we did have a bottle of champagne, which, the empty bottle's no longer on the table. It was on the table here, but we had a bottle of champagne, which helped me to figure out that I do not like champagne very much. But we didn't stay up till midnight or anything. We were just kind of boring. So that's how we did it. Did you, you know, kind of do a boring night? Did you go out and do something? Did you go to a party or something? Like, how did you bring in the New Year's? I'm curious. Maybe I can live vicariously through other people's fun stuff for New Year's. But yeah, that's going to be it for the knitting stuff. So that's all you're here for. Thank you very much for hanging out with me. Otherwise, I will tell you guys a little bit about my holidays, a little bit about what I've been up to for the past 2 weeks. And yeah, so hang around if you want to see that. Great. Anyway, so chit-chat time. I just tried to adjust one of the lights on our ceiling fan. We have like the worst lighting in this apartment. And so I was trying to adjust one of the lights to be more on me in the hopes that that would help things, but it doesn't, and now it's just really bright in my eyeballs. So I actually think I might go ahead and get up and fix that because I don't like it. Do not like it. That's better. Let's stick with that. Okay. Anyway, so chit chat. So the past 2 weeks, yeah, it really has not been as interesting as it probably should be, especially given that like it was the holidays and everything. But so I'll just start with like the holiday travel because I'm sure there was a couple of days before that, but I just don't really I wasn't doing anything interesting. I was just trying to finish up my knitting projects, and we were trying to get ready to go home. But yeah, so we went home. Our flight out was on the morning of the 23rd, because we flew on the 24th last year, on Christmas Eve last year, and that was a disaster. And I said, we will never ever do that again. I mean, it wasn't like a disaster, but it's tough. I don't enjoy flying on Christmas Eve. So, we're going to fly on the 23rd. So, and our flight was at 6:25 in the morning or something. So we had to get up really early. And the airport in Richmond is like 20 or 30 minutes from us, depending on what route we take. So I think I woke up at like 4:45 in the morning. So we could get out the door by 5 was our plan, because the airport here in Richmond is a really small airport. We've never really had to wait in line. And, even before we got the pre-check stuff, like we never have to wait very long. So we figured as long as we got there by 5:30, we'd be fine. So, we get our suitcase all ready. We get down to the car. We put the suitcase in the car. And we go to get the car started, and the car won't start. And it's like, great. So we had a dead battery, which was really frustrating, because like we just drove the car the day before, right? I think we went up to the mall or something the day before. So it was like, we just drove this, and we didn't leave anything on either. I would have noticed it had I left like the headlights on or something. So we couldn't figure out why the battery was dead. But of course, that doesn't really matter. The point is that the battery was dead, and we had to get to the airport. So we had our very first Uber experience, or well, I had ridden in an Uber, or I think both of us had ridden in an Uber before, but it was like the first time that I've ever gotten an Uber, right? I'd ridden in an Uber with a friend before, but this was the first time we'd ever gotten an Uber. So luckily he got here pretty fast and had a really nice car. And so it was a really like pretty quick and easy drive to the airport. And even with like, what we had to pay for the Uber and stuff, like I still saved money versus parking our car at the airport. So that was actually kind of nice. But yeah, so we got to the airport, got through security just fine. You got some coffee and stuff, but like, I don't travel well, right? Like I am not a good traveler, and especially as I'm getting older, I tend to get motion sickness easier and easier. And it's really weird though, because it only really happens on airplanes, right? Like I don't have problems really in cars or trains very much. Like I can't sleep in them, but I can ride in them just fine. But yeah, and like, so, and I don't do very well when I haven't had enough sleep, right? So when I don't get enough sleep, my stomach tends to get upset. So like, I think that morning was just like the perfect storm of like, I woke up too early, and then we had the stress of the car, which, stressed me out, even though it was no big deal, but it was just like a thing that wasn't expected. So it stressed me out. And then, we get to the airport, and I think I drank my coffee too fast. So it's just like the perfect storm of like an upset stomach. So I spent the whole plane ride just feeling super nauseous and super sick. And of course I couldn't sleep on the plane either. Luckily it was a direct flight. So it was like, by the time, when we landed, we were done, right? We were done traveling. So we get to Minneapolis, and my mom picked us up from the airport, and then we went over to the Mall of America to just kind of walk around a little bit and get some food and stuff. And I just felt so miserable. And so the plan had been that we were going to, like, as soon as we got picked up, we were going to take my mom's car and we were going to drive down to Iowa to go see my dad. Except that like I was feeling so sick and so miserable that it was like, no, we're not going anywhere. So I wound up going and taking a nap for like a couple of hours. Wesley had to go renew his driver's license. And so yeah, and then it started snowing and stuff, and we didn't want to drive down to Iowa in like the snow and stuff. So yeah, that plan got abandoned, and we spent the 23rd with we spent a little bit of time with like Wesley's family, and then we went over to my mom's place and spent a little bit of time there. But yeah, and then on the 24th, on Christmas Eve, we did wind up going down to Iowa because the weather was clear. Like, it wasn't supposed to be raining or snowing, except that it was foggy the whole way. It's like a 3.5 hour drive from Wesley's parents' place where we were staying down to Iowa, and it was fog the whole way. And like, I kept thinking, like, it's gotta lift at some point, right? Like 5 minutes, we're gonna be out of the fog. No. It was fog the whole way. And it was fine most of the way because we were on the interstate, and so it was just kind of like, whatever, right? Like, people know how to drive in this. But then as we were getting closer and closer to where my dad lived, we got on like some like county or country highways and stuff. And like, there were people who just like were driving at like 30 miles an hour. It's like, what are you doing? Like, it's just fog. It's fine. So that was really frustrating, but it was nice. We got to see my dad. My older brother was there, and my little brother had been planning on coming down, but he had like the stomach flu, and so he was super sick. Not anymore on the 24th, but he was still just like recovering, so he couldn't be there. But it was, me and Wesley and my dad and my brother. We did lunch, and then we had to turn around and leave because it was supposed to start raining then, and we didn't want to get caught in the rain. So yeah, we spent maybe 2 or 3 hours in Iowa and then had to turn around and make the drive back up to Minnesota again. But it was really nice to be able to see my dad and my brother. So we did that, and then we spent the night of the 24th then at my mom's. So then my little brother was at my mom's. So we were at my mom's, my little brother and his girlfriend and the kid. And so that was a lot of fun. Just very hectic, but a lot of fun. And then Christmas Day we spent with Wesley's parents. And it was really nice because we just didn't have to go anywhere, right? Because you can't go anywhere on Christmas Day because everything's closed. And like we just didn't have plans to go anywhere. So that was really nice to just have a day where we just sat at home all day. So we did that. We watched Christmas movies like all day. And then the 26th, I got to see one of my very best girlfriends who I haven't seen in way too long because she lives in Colorado now. So we did that, and then what else did we do? I feel like I did something else. I don't remember. But then we went to the Timberwolves game that night with my mom, and that was a lot of fun because they won. They just crushed the team they were playing, who I don't remember who it is, but they crushed the other team, so that was really nice. And then the 27th was our last day in Minnesota. So I went over to my mom's and did all my yarn dyeing. And then Wesley and his parents came and picked me up because I'd been borrowing my mom's car the whole time. So part of the reason I went over to her place was because I had to return her car. So then Wesley came and picked me up, and then we went back to his parents' place and kind of, got packed back up, got ready to go. And then Wesley went out to go see one of his friends that night. And then we flew back on the 28th, which it went a lot better than flying out because, like, again, we had a similarly early flight, so it wasn't as if I got any more sleep, but like I didn't have to deal with any stress, right? Because his parents gave us a ride to the airport. I knew we were going to get an Uber on our way back, which again was a very nice experience. And so like that was like a fine trip. So we got back, and I think then that day we got someone to come out and jump the car. So, the car was running then, so then we took it up to some car parts place, and found out that we needed a new battery because it wasn't so much that the one that was in it was original to the car, and so like it just didn't have enough juice to like get the car started anymore. Like there was some number that he told us that was like, oh, it's supposed to be something, but it's only this, and that's why your car won't start. So we're like, okay. So then we had to get a new battery, which, I mean, just is what it is, right? It's just a cost associated with car ownership. So we got the new battery, then we went to the mall for a little bit and kind of did some of that stuff. And yeah, and since then, we've just kind of been like puttering around the house or the apartment. We've been cleaning, trying to get everything sort of fresh and clean for the new year, new semester, all that stuff. So I spent all day yesterday cleaning the bathroom and getting the floors in here cleaned. We've cleaned the kitchen. We took down the Christmas tree. The Christmas tree used to be right here. So we took down the Christmas tree and put that away yesterday or the day before. Moved the bookshelf. This table used to be over in that corner, which you can't see, but it used to be over in that corner. So we moved the table back over here so we can actually eat at it. We moved the bookcase, just did a whole bunch of stuff, trying to sort through some stuff that we have. And yeah, just kind of been enjoying the last little bit of winter break because I go back to work tomorrow. And Wesley he actually isn't taking any classes this semester because this is his last semester, so he just has to write his thesis. But he has to write his thesis. So like he basically is taking tomorrow as also his back to work day, and so he's going to be heading back to campus and getting going on his thesis and stuff. But yeah, I've really just been enjoying kind of just having some lazy time, but I'm also really ready to get back to work because I really enjoy like the structure in my day, and kind of having lazy days for too long is no fun for me. So I feel like I've had just the right amount of lazy time, and now I'm ready to go back to work. So yeah, and just in case anyone is curious, right? So I talked a little bit last time about my goals. I started the thread in the Ravelry group, which if you're watching this on the blog, I will try and link to the thread. But I started a thread in there about kind of like 2017 goals. So, and people have been talking about their goals and stuff in there. So keep it up, especially if you'd like to kind of have like the community support as you attempt to achieve whatever goals. Like they can be knitting goals, they can be life goals, whatever. So like two of my life goals were that I wanted to read more books this year. I wanted to read 25 books in 2017, and I wanted to watch 25 new movies. And I also wanted to save 25% of my take-home pay. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about how that's going. So in terms of books, I mean, granted, 2017 just started. So I had one book that I finished before the end of 2016, so I'm not going to count that, but I thought I'd mention it. And it was called The Steel Kiss, and I think it's by Jeffrey Deaver. I'll link to like the Amazon page for it. But it's the same guy who wrote The Bone Collector, which I didn't realize at first. But yeah, it's the same guy who wrote The Bone Collector, which was turned into a movie in like the 90s. Sorry, my computer screen went dark again. It was turned into a movie in like the 90s, I think, with Denzel Washington and Angelina Jolie. And they're like chasing like a serial killer or something. But anyway, the book was super good, and now I plan to go back and read some of the other books because it's like part of this series with that character, or with those characters in it. And so I'm planning on going back and reading some of them. But of course my library doesn't have any of them, so whatever, it'll wait for a little bit. So I finished reading that a couple days ago, and then the book that I'm currently reading is called Going Clear. And I forget who the author of that one is. Again, I'll link to it. But it's a nonfiction book. It's about like Scientology and sort of the origins of Scientology and sort of about like what their belief system is. And, you know, it's not like I'm going to convert to Scientology or anything. It's just something that I'm curious about and interested in learning more about. So I figured, what the heck, I'll read a book about it. So yeah, that's what I'm currently reading. And in terms of movies, again, this one won't really count because we watched it. I think we actually watched it on New Year's Eve. So it wasn't watched in 2017, but we did watch a really funny movie. And this one was sent to me by my Canadian pen pal because he told me about it and then wound up sending me a DVD of it. And I actually don't know if I'd be able to get it here in the States because it's a Canadian movie, but I will grab it oh, there we go. So it is called Men with Brooms, and it has Leslie Nielsen in it. The other people who are in it, it's like I recognize them, but like I can't for the life of me think of what they've been in. But so this is what it looks like. Men with Brooms. It's about curling. It's a kind of comedy movie about curling. It's similar to like Dodgeball, but for curling. It's really funny. It's I don't know like how Canadian movie ratings go. So this is what the rating on the box is. Something 14 something. It's not going to focus on that. Focus? No, not going to focus. It says 14A rating. I don't know what that means, but if that means that it's okay for 14-year-olds, Canadians are apparently way looser on their movie ratings than Americans. Because if this was an American movie, this would hardcore be rated R. Because it's got a lot of swearing in it. It's got a lot of other adult things in it. But if you are an adult and, you know, want to watch a funny adult sort of movie, and you can get your hands on it, highly recommend. Very funny. So, but it's not for kids, right? It's not Dodgeball, right? It's not as family friendly as Dodgeball. So, adults only. But it was very funny, and we really, really enjoyed that. But yeah, I think that's going to be it. I feel like I'm getting a little rambly, and I want to make sure that I get this edited and uploaded in time because it is currently Monday and I need to have it uploaded by Tuesday. And I have a lot of other stuff to get done today. Like I need to make my lunches for the week and stuff like that. So yeah. But yeah, that's going to be it for me. Thank you very much for hanging out. I feel like this was a longer episode than usual. So what can you do? That's what happens when you take 2 weeks off. But yeah, thanks for hanging out, and hope you had a good start to 2017, or hope you're having a good 2017, depending on when you're watching this, or hope you had a good 2017 if you're watching this way in the future. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.